The medieval concept of the world composed of four elements is fundamental to understanding the tree of life.
that there is a plan to create a 650-foot sun tower on Treasure Island in San Francisco that I discussed in Volume 1, I visited the site in the 11th month of 2011 to find out if the pair of six-pointed barracks that occupy the site had been torn down yet. I found the barracks still intact, yet was blown away to find a colossal statue called Bliss Dance standing directly in front of the barracks. It seems to me that this statue resonates with Isis, posed as she is on a seven-sided island directly across the bay from the Transamerica Pyramid, which resonates with Osiris. In Volume 1, I detailed my discovery of a nine-sided polygon or enneagon connecting the Transamerica Pyramid, Columbus Avenue, and the street grid of San Francisco with Treasure Island. Kevin McMahon discovered that if you draw a line from the intersection of Mason and Columbus Streets to the top of the dome of the Manitoba Legislative Building, it passes through the International Peace Garden on the US-Canada border. The fountain in the Peace Garden has an interesting longitude, and an auditorium on the US side of the border is shaped like the Freemason symbol. Justin Morgan pointed out that California Street in San Francisco ends at 33rd Avenue in the west, adjacent to the grounds of Lincoln Park and the California Palace of the Legion of Honor. The fountain in front of the Legion of Honor is the western terminus of the Lincoln Highway, the first road across America that predated Route 66. I noticed that the axis of the Legion of Honor points directly at the Manitoba Legislative Building, and the line also passes through the International Peace Garden. Court Lindahl recognized that Sundial Bridge in Redding, California is due north of the center of the enneagon of San Francisco. In fact, Sundial Bridge is 166.66 nautical miles due north of the exact center of the enneagon. Sundial Bridge's 66-meter gnomon acts as the shadowcaster and the structural support for the bridge that was designed by Santiago Calatrava. Calatrava also designed the $2.22 billion PATH Transportation Hall in the rebuilt World Trade Center in New York. The above-ground structure is called an oculus, a word which means eye-like opening. This all-seeing eye will measure 330 feet in width when completed. If the enneagon represents the Egyptian Ennead of 9 gods worshipped in Heliopolis, then the god at the top would of course be the creator, Atum. There are 81 possible relationships between 9 gods, as 9 times 9 is 81. In God's Secret Formula, chemist/physicist Peter Plichta recognized that there are exactly 81 stable atoms in the universe. Atomic numbers higher than 83 are radioactive and decay over time, eventually splitting into stable atoms. But elements 43 and 61 also are radioactive, thereby leaving exactly 81 stable atoms. Perhaps the Egyptian Ennead represents number itself, and the mathematical relationships between numbers 1 through 9 underpin the structure of the atom. Atom is god number 1 of 9. This can be rationalized as 1 over 9 as a fractional part of the whole. 1/9 equals 0.1111, and so on with eternally repeating ones. Suppose Isis is god number 5. Rationally, she would be 5 over 9, which is 0.5555, and so on. If Osiris is god number 6, his relationship to the whole would be as 6 over 9, or 2/3, which is 0.6666, and so on. The preponderance of repetitive single digits encoded into architecture, urban design, and the universe appears to be an expression of the 9 fundamental forces behind creation. Stephen O'Rourke identified a street pyramid in his article on the Masonic history of San Francisco. Masonic Center is located at 1111 California Street, in the position of the Queen's Chamber in the street pyramid. The relief sculpture on the exterior of 1111 California depicts a global tug-of-war between good and evil forces, which says dedicated to our Masonic brethren who died in the cause of freedom. Celebrated not in the U.S., but in the Commonwealth of Nations, whose flag resembles the very same globe at the center of the sculpture's tug-of-war, Remembrance Day is celebrated annually on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Grace Cathedral is directly across the street from 1111 California. I went inside and was blown away to discover an art installation called Invisible Man by Daniel Joshua Goldstein. The first sentence on the plaque says, quote, "Invisible Man is a suspended sculpture made of 864 syringes, each tipped with a red crystal bead. The cloud of arrows surrounds a negative space that, as the work rotates, reveals a human figure. As someone who lived through AIDS in San Francisco, this is a theme I call the presence of absence." End quote. Also inside Grace Cathedral is a wall commemorating the founding of the UN in San Francisco, and a piece of art showing the UN emblem at the center of numerous religious symbols. In addition, a Chi Rho is centered on the nave floor, the sign under which the Roman Emperor Constantine conquered, which is also the phrase on the Knights Templar Freemasonic logo. Finally, Grace Cathedral has a replica of the labyrinth of Chartres Cathedral that I discussed in Volume 1. Jan Thulstrup was researching Pier 33 and noticed that its keystone arch is correlated with the Royal Arch Masonic Rite. Pier 33 is immediately adjacent to Alcatraz Landing, where the ferry docks for voyages to the infamous prison and tourist trap. Thulstrup noticed that the dock is oriented at a bearing of 33 degrees true north. Justin Morgan, one of the authors of the Sync book, discovered on a personal visit that ISIS Imports just happens to be at the end of Pier 33. ISIS imports his namesake Morgan automobiles. Alcatraz has the oldest lighthouse on the west coast, a classic symbol of illumination echoing the George Washington National Masonic Memorial in Alexandria, Virginia, which is itself a replica of the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria, Egypt, the Star of Isis. I drew a line from the top of the dome of City Hall to the start of the dock on Alcatraz Landing, and was amazed that it passes directly over 1111 California Street. Not only that, but the distance from dome to dock is 3,333 meters. This line that transects the street pyramid has roughly the same angle as the shaft in the Queen's Chamber that Bivol and Gilbert identified as pointing to the Star of Isis in the Orion Mystery.